visible?
Yeah. Everything is good.
Yeah.
You can carry on.
So I'm just going to talk to you about how much of a problem glaucoma is in this country. Before we go to this country, let's look at what happens across the world. So in the world, at this point in time, about 76 million people in the world have glaucoma. These numbers will go up to about 110 million in 20 years' time. That's a huge number of people. That is more than the population of some countries, for that matter. And the big problem with glaucoma is this: 8% of blindness globally is caused by glaucoma. And unlike refractive error, which is the requirement for glasses, or cataract, which are curable, blindness because of glaucoma is incurable. And this is the most common cause of irreversible blindness globally. And unfortunately, most people don't know that such a disease exists. How do we know the number of people who have glaucoma in India and or across the world? And for this, I will just briefly tell you what is done. What is done is that you go to the population and you examine 1,000, 2,000, or in these studies in India, between 1,000 and 8,000 people were examined. Most of the time you look at people above the age of 40 because they're the people who get glaucoma. You examine completely normal people randomly chosen from the population and look to see if they have glaucoma. You do a detailed evaluation and then you see how many people have glaucoma. And then based on that profile, you project the data to the rest of the country. So when you look at the global prevalence of primary open angle glaucoma, which is one type of glaucoma which you will hear about shortly, you find that India has a fair amount of open angle glaucoma. That is a sort of dull green number there. But India also has a problem of angle closure glaucoma, which you don't see in most of these other countries. You see it in Asia and you see it among Eskimos. So we have a double problem. We have as much glaucoma as you see in the West with open angle glaucoma. And we also have a type of glaucoma called angle closure glaucoma, which is commoner in India. So is this a significant health problem in India? And from the various studies we know that about 11 million people have glaucoma. And this 11 million is in people above the age of 40 years. So we have only about 300 million people in India who are above the age of 40 years. And approximately 3 to 5% of them actually have glaucoma. But this doesn't stop here. And it doesn't stop here because when we look at the proportion of people who are blind because of glaucoma in India from various studies, in these studies, you find that anywhere between 45% and 10% of the population were blind because of glaucoma. And this is a problem because most people with the disease don't know that they have the disease. And in addition to glaucoma, you need to see how many people are at risk of glaucoma, because it's not just people with the disease, how many people are at risk of glaucoma. And this number is much larger. I told you that about 3% of people above the age of 40 have glaucoma, but 15% are at risk of disease. So whenever you go for your eye checkup, people look for these risk factors and tell you that you need to be under closer review going forward. What proportion of people with glaucoma in this country have been detected? And this is where the big problem comes. I'm going to show you these two charts here. The chart on the left basically tells you that the blue area is the number of people, the gray area is the number of people who have been not been detected. So in the West, about half the population with glaucoma knows they have glaucoma and they're on treatment. In India, just 10% of people with the glaucoma know that they have glaucoma. So out of our 11 million people, hardly 1 million people across the country are being treated. The rest are gradually going blind. And why is this? One of the big reasons, and I think that's one of the reasons AIS is also doing this program, is people don't know about glaucoma. And when we looked at population studies in India, you find that in India, hardly 2 to 3% of people have even heard about the disease, let alone know anything about it. And why are we especially concerned in India? One of the big advantages of India is we are a young country. Most of our population is young, but we are becoming older. And as you can see, this is what we look like 20 years ago on the left side. And this is what we look like 20 years from now. You can see that we are going to have a more even spread of people in all different age groups as compared to now where we have more people in the younger age group. And because of this, if you just look at one type of glaucoma and its risk and people at risk of glaucoma, we are going up from about 25 million people with a risk in 2006 to about 46 million people with a risk in 2000 right now to about 90 million people with risk in 2050. So 90 million people is the size of a large state in India. This is the number of people who are going to be at risk of glaucoma. And that's why you need to be aware of it. So what is the magnitude of the problem in this country? It is huge. And most people don't know about it. So 11 million with glaucoma, 15% of the population over the age of 40 have disease or are at risk of the disease, and 90% of it is undetected. Thank you very much to AIS for the opportunity to speak. And this is a short, brief introduction on the magnitude of the problem.